Hello, Taurus, and welcome to the story of I Am, the Planet Waves 2020 autumn reading that will be focusing mostly on Mars retrograde and then on the ingress of Jupiter and Saturn into Aquarius. Both of these are rather high importance events in your life because they make movements in parts of your chart where you just have a lot of both sensitivity and then also something important to express. Before I get into the chart, I want to start with an acknowledgement of the incredible stress at this time of history. We are all under it in some way, except maybe for a few people, say, for example, at the top of the companies that have made billions of dollars in the past few months, like Amazon and so forth. But everybody else is in some way feeling the stress of this situation. On one of the reporters lists that I am on, someone just sent around an article about some new CDC statistics that came out saying that 25% of young adults considered committing suicide in June. That is worse than I thought it would be. I thought that this whole response was an overreaction and misguided and medically incompetent. However, and I knew it would have fallout. I did not think that a quarter of young adults in the United States would consider taking their own lives, and that reflects that there's a problem that expands far beyond that. You have a lot of people who are not really in a good position to talk about their the intimate details of their inner life, assuming anyone is even interested, which is small children. And then on the older spectrum, you have a lot of people who are both afraid for their lives and then also languishing because in many ways society is neglecting them, and various sides of various families not allowing kids to hug their grandparents. And that's bad for both the grandparents and the grandchildren, even to prevent them from having physical contact, and then also to lace that with a death threat that is just ridiculous. And so I bring this up in the Taurus reading because the place that Mars retrograde happens in your chart is one of those psychologically sensitive zones. Any place someone has Aries, there's going to be a lot of emphasis in their chart. Aries is one of those unique signs that has a role on the level of a common feature. We all have, say that a little bit differently. We all have all the planets and all the signs in every chart, but some of the signs stand out. And Aries is as the first sign is one of the things that stands out, and that's because Aries is so deeply involved in the quest to become oneself, which is such an inherent part of Western civilization. It's pushed from every angle. It's not really supported very well, and there's tension between that push to be unique and then not being supported, and then at the same time there's a push to be unique that's not really upheld by much. Then at the same time there's an incredible amount of insistence on conformity. And so this creates quite a bit of tension in most people in their lives, and it's really tough on young people who don't have many ways to express themselves and had far fewer opportunities up until the beginning of 2020 than they've had in previous generations, owing to society becoming increasingly fearful at every turn, and helicopter parenting and this obsession with the internet over the experience. as if the perception of safety is the only virtue. And now, with lockdown, schools closed, social distances, and constant ongoing controversy, it is even harder. And I would encourage you to consider what's going on with the young people around you, and to reach out to them. But addressing your particular chart and your particular psychology, I've often said that one of the things that makes Taurus the most distinct sign is the placement of Aries in your chart. So take a look at this. This is the solar chart. So the solar chart is the chart for your sign itself, which then can be applied to all Taurus rising and all Taurus sun, and quite possibly Taurus moon. There's the moon people who feel that my astrology works very well for them, and I'm more emphasized on sun and rising, but the moon is the moon. We're not going anywhere without it. Okay, so Aries in the Taurus solar chart is placed in the 12th house. It's right. 12th means right before yours, right before the sign in question is the 12th, the last of the 12th, and the 12th is a zone in the chart where there is a kind of like a hidden room in the chart. And that hidden room has different names in psychology. It can be called the unconscious, the collective unconscious, the subconscious, and various things. The 12th is the house of dreams. The 12th is the house of things gone missing. The 12th is the house of where we look for the people who have kind of gone mad, where we look for the people who have been institutionalized, who are missing, who have died, or who have not physically died, but are also not physically present. Very important house to understand. It's exceedingly complex, but remembering that it's the house of things gone missing. And when we put Aries into the 12th, there is this sense that the thing that's gone missing is you. And what this creates in Taurus is this incredible tension that feels like a constant quest for the aspect of you that you can't easily find or make contact with. One of the outer manifestations of this is that I see in Taurus people, and I know an exceptional number of Taurus people, particularly Taurus sun, is that of all the 12 signs, the biggest disparity between the inner life and the outer life, or the inner perception of one's being and the outer perception of one's being, is the widest for Taurus. And this is it's difficult for you, and also for people who know you, because there's not really it's not easy to figure out what's going on for you, and you don't necessarily want to talk about that. That's because there is this inner experience of being, this inner experience of consciousness, is so different from what you present and what others perceive on the outside. And so the inner and the outer create a kind of an inner bubble, and that bubble can push out, and the pressure can increase. Also, it can compress. The pressure can increase, and it can be very uncomfortable to live with this. And this is why in astrology, a sensitive and competent astrologer, properly trained in psychological astrology, understands that the 12th is where to look for challenges, where to look for disturbances, where to look for the missing piece and the missing element. And in any natal chart reading, it is a crucially important house to study, because it's going to tell you the aspects of the chart owner's life that are the least likely to manifest out in the open. I believe that astrology is a much better tool for gaining asking questions than for getting answers. And I know that astrology is usually used the opposite way. Astrology is usually used as a thing that provides some definite information. That's what the chart says. Following off of this 12th house approach, I think that that the chart must be used to make queries. So based on that idea, I want to just show you what's going on in your 12th house, and then describe this as a kind of a meta-spiritual issue, a spiritual issue on a level that goes far beyond hanging out in East-West Books in Greenwich Village. I don't even know if such a thing even exists anymore, but it's where I spent a lot of my teenage years, hanging out in the bookstore, and get a feeling for the right questions to ask. So, as you may know, most of the action in the sky right now is concentrated between Aries and Capricorn. And look at all these squares. All these planets in Aries are making 90-degree aspects to all these planets in Capricorn, and these little guys here are also making squares to these little guys here, and so there's a lot of tension between Aries and Capricorn. And this is important to acknowledge and admit and know that this tension exists. And the ninth house here for you, where Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn have been for years. Well, Jupiter for a year, Saturn for 3, Pluto for 12, is a house where you do a kind of a conscious spiritual inquiry. So the ninth is like churchy stuff, and the ministry. It's also about universities, higher learning and higher education, and courts that I would place either on the federal level or above. Federal meaning federal, U.S. district courts, federal courts in all countries, and then national appellate courts in all countries, and high-level state appellate courts. All the local courts are in the seventh house. But the bigger courts and the appellate courts and the panels that make the big sweeping decisions are in the ninth house. So the ninth is kind of the house of things higher self, higher learning, higher courts, higher ed. I've mentioned that, There has been a lot of pressure in this house. For 12 years, Pluto's coming through, and this has caused a kind of a constant, nonstop, almost a spiritual existential crisis that has involved dismantling the ideas that you were instilled with as a young person. We're all instilled with ideas, whether you have to take the Boy Scout pledge and say, on my honor, I promise to do my duty for God and my country and to obey the Scout law. Ninth house, right? You're being sworn. You're swearing an oath in the ninth house. I wasn't Quaker at that time. I didn't realize that I did not have to swear oaths. But there's the Scout oath, the Scout law, and you make these promises. And this goes on with the Pledge of Allegiance, and it goes on. You think the pledge? What kid? Some little bongo in Life in Hell, the predecessor of Bart Simpson, but would flip the bird to the Pledge of Allegiance on a fairly regular basis and got tied up in the corner for it. So all of those God and country type of things have come under serious question, and this is also if you've kind of been letting it do its work, questioning dogmas and doctrines such as guilt as a way of life. Very, very tragic thing that we've had inflicted on us. Okay, so the ninth is like a little mini 12th. You don't really talk about what you do in the ninth unless you go to Egypt with Power Places tours and Barbara Hand Clow, and you lay down in the sarcophagus of the King's Chamber, you talk about that, or you do past life regression and you write about it on Facebook. But for the most part, the actual material of the ninth house is veiled material. The 10th is what we express in the 11th. Then we get back to the 12th, and that for you is Aries, which you might call, if not your true self, the place where you actively seek your true self. And so a lot of tension in this house of spiritual matters, but then the 12th goes a dimension beyond the 9th and into the unspeakable direct interrelationship that we have with ourselves, which is so concealed, unspeakable, and at times completely inaccessible that many people have no idea that they're even doing that. Like, how often do you really take the wisdom of your dreams? Well, that's the 12th house. That would be the 12th house. Entities in the 9th house, church and all that, may say, oh, you can't really trust dreams, that they're too spooky and the devil can come through. But the 12th is the unconscious actually speaking. And it speaks in a way that is compelling and that you can pursue without even realizing that you're pursuing it. And when there is major activity in the 12th, there can be quite a bit of irritation and tension in one's life. And so now, in the midst of all of this tension between the 9th and the 12th house, Mars is about to station retrograde. And it's going to station retrograde in a conjunction with Eris, a planet that was discovered in 2005 and takes 558 years to go around the sun. Eris is remembered for being the one that got Pluto demoted. Quote, demoted. And then Pluto in the 9th, which has been the outward, well, not so much out, but the tangible sense of spiritual quest, evolutionary quest that you have been on, whatever marks time of the last 12 years. Okay, so with that as the setup, now Mars is stationing retrograde at the very end of Aries, 28 and change Aries. It's going to retrograde back for 2 months, and it's going to begin by repeating its conjunction to Eris, and then it's square to Saturn, and finally it's square to Pluto. I'm not sure it's going to make a square to Jupiter quite yet. It may have just done that once, but the important ones here are Mars square Pluto and Mars square Saturn retrograde. And so this is a very deep inquiry. However, we're not on the time of deep inquiry into anything. That concept is kind of like a legend, right? The deep inquiry is like a legend, and like dudes where they're drawn in the panel of their book in a sketch because they didn't have photographs. Those are the people who did deep inquiries, like Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung and those people. We're not in the time of deep inquiry, and it's in some ways legendary, like going to Africa to explore the unexplored continent, right? So now the unexplored continent is us, and we don't really have very many modalities for exploring the unexplored continent, but you are being taken on this trip. And it might not be comfortable. And I want to just encourage you to, if this Mars retrograde has got you feeling irritated and like you're looking for something that you can't find, to just be real about that. Like, don't worry that you seemingly can't find it. You will, and you can relax a little, you can relax a lot, and make this personal inquiry. Do the things that you do in your life which support you making personal inquiry into yourself and into your true nature. And I would encourage you not to be disturbed by any possibility that what you are experiencing as your true nature is somehow incongruent with the person that you express to the world. Like, you tend to want to express to the world your best self. You do not want to be seen as a hypocrite. You don't want to be seen as someone who struggles too much. You want to. You're very conscious of your image. Both of the Venus signs are extremely image conscious, Libra and Taurus, and so what you may wind up with is tension between what is going on in your inner life and what you want to be presenting in your outer life. And I know how difficult this can be. I know the pressure, that I know what it's like to be under that pressure, and I've heard from others, who are, and it's particularly with all the pressure that we have now to express every thought. It's hard. Speaking of that, one of the things that I think Aries is about, which I have documented in a number of places related to my Eris and Aries and the internet approach to media studies, using astrology as kind of a media studies platform, is that the internet has done a lot of damage to our ability to conceive of ourselves as whole people. It's done a lot of damage to conceive of ourselves as people, and just in the past few weeks, we've learned that there's now kind of a cyborg drug that can morph a human being with a computer, and we're hearing about a DNA vaccine that somebody wants to inject into 7 billion people that essentially rewrites the human genome to become a little virus annihilator, to make every cell a virus annihilator. And they were seen in one video with a DNA model showing how this little piece of DNA is going to rewrite your entire genome and so forth, and then now there is active talk of either some form of an immunity pass that everyone's going to carry on their phone, and I think that the cell phone, is an instrument of tyranny, especially now that we're seeing this, or a tattoo, or an implant, and what does not surprise me is that the captains of industry are inventing this. Obviously, it's a very profitable thing, and it's kind of a megalomaniac's wet dream to be able to control everyone. But what I'm finding upsetting is that people are not wise to this, and not more willing to resist this serious attack on their bodily autonomy and personal integrity, and further, that so many people are so easily manipulated by being kept in a state of nonstop fear. And this is probably written about in various psychological interrogation manuals, where you keep someone in a stressed out state for long enough and they're going to snap. And when you have 25% of young adults saying that they're ready to leave the planet, you know that a lot of people are at that breaking point. And I want to encourage you to get out of your head. One of the things I've seen about Taurus people, and I mean, I have very unusual depth of experience with Taurus people, including some of my very most important lovers over the years have had Sun in Taurus and Venus in Aries. A number of them are kind of amazing. And my primary therapist and teacher, Joe, has Sun, Taurus, Venus in Aries. And so I've had personal occasion to like get to know people, Taurus, and especially with Venus and Aries, which kind of highlights that interior quality. And I have never, and I study everyone pretty much, the getting lost in one's head thing for Taurus is a huge thing. And it is not easy to open up and just say, well, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling angry at myself, I'm feeling all this overwhelming guilt coming from somewhere I don't know where it's coming from. I need to somehow let this out. I have sexual feelings that I don't understand. I show myself to the world as one person, and I really feel like everybody thinks I'm a really together person. I feel like a hot mess on the inside. People always say that I'm confident, and yet I then I get home and I feel like I have this feeling I don't know who I am. Any such manifestation of an inner-outer divide falls into this general concept of being lost in one's head, and this is one of the most challenging things I have found for people with Taurus, is the kind of mental machine that can get going, and you would think, well, where exactly is that in the Taurus signature? Where, like this, looking at the solar chart, looking at the whole mandala, the whole pattern of what astrologically defines Taurus, right? Because every sign has a different solar chart, right? If we were to take the Cancer, so let's look at Taurus solar chart that has Capricorn on the ninth house. It's a very distinctive thing to have Capricorn in your house of your concept of God and your concept of justice. If we take Cancer. Cancer rising, Cancer sun, that puts Pisces on the ninth house. That's a whole other concept. For example, I'm Cancer rising, and I experience academic education as this vast playground of the imagination. Taurus or Taurus rising with Capricorn on the ninth can experience higher education as just thing that you just have to get through, and that can be quite unpleasant and not necessarily helpful, and it can feel like indoctrination. I have never experienced education as feeling like indoctrination. With Capricorn on the ninth, I can certainly see how education, particularly university level and above, would seem like indoctrination. So it's very different reality for each of the signs, and so looking at where this inner outer tension comes from, the place it illustrates it the most vividly is having this sign of the search for self tucked into the 12th, and now Mars is going to take a big trip back. And that and it's been on a trip forward for 2 months, and all in all, Mars retrograde will encompass 6 months of Mars in Aries, and so this could be pushing you to extremes. It could be, it could be any emotional or psychological extreme, including what I think is going to be the most productive and helpful and creative and spiritually grounded use of this is a search for extremes, a search for who you think you might be, a search for who you want to become, and a retrieval process. So in some circles, there's a concept called soul retrieval, which I think as long as you don't take it too literally, it's a great idea, right? As long as you don't think you're actually, retrieving your one soul in that one experience. But I think there's many elements of what we can call soul, which is these little kind of gardens of becoming that we contain in different parts of our life. And you might take dance class for a while and nurture one part of your becoming process there, and then you might have had some excellent experience with calculus in high school that you weren't expecting to have, and you do some nurturing there. And then maybe in your 40s you discover painting, and you do some nurturing there of growing this garden of who you are. And then many of these projects get left behind. And what I think that the Mars retrograde process in your 12th house is talking about is going back through your history of your self-actualization projects and discoveries, and also the books you've read, the important books that you've read. Pick up some of those that all of us, at least beyond a certain age, have had some profound experience of being awakened by a book and being turned on to some element of our inner truth by seemingly outer, can't quite see it, but seemingly outer source. This is a copy of the unrevised sort of rough draft transcription of A Course in Miracles. I finally got my hands on a paper copy of that. I always knew I would, and now I have one. So go back and look at those texts that liberated you, that taught you. And this will also involve, because what happens to Aries happens to Capricorn. Go back and look for do an inventory of the things that you feel oppressed you in some way, and maybe find the ways that they didn't, or find the ways that that thing held you down, and then the holding down led to a kind of a tension breakthrough that allowed you to be free. So this could be, for example, you're forced to go to vacation Bible school for the summer. I really wish they wouldn't do this to kids. They should be sending them to like art and play camp where they can kids can run around in the woods and make out. But let's say pretend for example you were sent to vacation Bible school, and it's a beautiful summer day, and they're making you read this antique book, and you're looking at it, and one of two things happens. Maybe you realize, oh, that actually is a pretty good idea, or you realize, what a crock of shit. This is just a bunch of oppressive patriarchal insanity. And this happens to young people. And so I would encourage you, with retrograde Mars happening, to look back for a while, to take a kind of an inventory of your personal history. Okay, so this is all, important psychological work. Your chart is heading to a very, very different place than it has been for many years. Your chart really, for years, has been dominated by Capricorn, and then the first major thing to get you out of that happened, which is that Uranus entered your sign in the spring of 2018 and then re-entered in the spring of 2019. And there can be no more humorous juxtaposition of astrological factors than Uranus and Taurus. I think it's beautiful, and I think that it's that opposition, that electrifying lightning bolt-like energy encountering the very stable and proper and well-presented energy of Taurus, which does not like to come off like a revolutionary, right? I mean, there's a couple of wackos like Bono who like to come off like a revolutionary, but he's unique among Tauruses. Mostly people with his talent who are Taurus just want to be an artist, and the beauty of Taurus artists is that once they come through town is never the same again. And so Uranus in your sign is presenting you with what may seem like the pressure to reinvent yourself every day, and I suggest you grant yourself direct permission to do that. this works brilliantly with something else that is happening and that is going to define the next era of your life, meaning potentially the rest of your life, which is that currently Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto, all should have little retrogrades next to them, are lurking right at the end of your ninth house, which, by the way, please make a note of this. You may be experiencing a lot of your mother's psychological drama. I have found, I'll draw a little line there, and you can, if you like to read people's charts, I'm going to use the Inspiration Sustain Yourself card to draw as my ruler. I don't really have enough rulers, so I'm always using things like bookmarks and tarot cards. That this, I've drawn it a little bit too wide, but that this, I'll shade it, that this section of the ninth house, whatever you define as ninth, whole sign houses, quadrant houses, particularly quadrant, but anyone will do. The end of the ninth house is the mother's hidden psychological legacy. Ask yourself now, if you're going through changes, ask yourself whether you're not actually doing your mother's unfinished psychological and spiritual work. Really ask yourself. First, ask yourself what that work is. What you think your mom should complete to be a spiritually and psychologically grounded person, or what you think she should have completed. Then ask yourself what you're doing that doesn't quite feel like your business. What are you doing that you're toiling over, laboring over, struggling with? There may be a connection. And check this in charts. It's fascinating to see. And I get this from somebody named Martha Lang Westcott, a therapist, become astrologer. One of my most important influences. I've had many long conversations with Martha. I've read a bunch of her books on the asteroids, and this is where I get this hidden psychological legacy of the mother at the end of the ninth. And look at this explosion in the ninth. Soon, this starts to move into the 10th. And with this, it's going to be the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction on 12/21/20. So the year began with a massive conjunction in Capricorn, the conjunction of Saturn and Pluto, which is on 1/12/20, and then the year ends with Jupiter conjunct Saturn on 12/21/20 on the winter solstice up here in the north. And what this is doing is it is going to basically help you blow out of this internal theoretical world where everything is attended by some psychological episode deep philosophical abstract questioning, and put you in a position where it's just time to lead and take action. And so if you've ever had aspirations to leadership, you're about to have them fulfilled, and you might want to read a little bit about consensus leadership. There's an author named C.T. Butler. If you want to know about consensus, C.T. Butler, an old friend of mine, has done some of the best work on consensus leadership. And the thing to remember about that is that it's at first about agreeing on the underlying values and principles and working your way forward from there. It's never about the issue. It's always about the underlying values and principles. And so you're going to be in a position to be taking leadership and what looks like a consensus-based leadership model. And then when this whole Mars retrograde thing is over, Mars is going to enter your sign in January and basically kind of like cause another kind of cascading series of events where then it's Mars, Uranus, Saturn, and Jupiter taking place in houses that are not these cryptic houses like the 9th and the 12th, but more directly and boldly expressed houses like the first and and the 10th. It's a lot of responsibility. Take care of yourself. Don't let this shit get you down, and don't fall for the fear. I'm trying to find the words to describe without sounding like I'm jumping to conclusions, which I never do, and I've taken 6 months to look into this issue. This whole thing is not what we're being told, and that means to be responding accurately, we have to figure out what actually is going on, so that we're not responding to somebody else's fantasy drama. And you need to be living in the real world, because you are going to be called to leadership in the real world, and that's going to be soon, forthwith, on whatever level: community leadership, business leadership, corporate leadership, company, government leadership, professional leadership. Something that is calling you, and you can be confident that you've done the inner work, and you will emerge from this with a degree of confidence that I don't think you've ever felt before, and I think you'll like it a lot. Okay, that is what I have to say to you. Thank you for your trust and for listening. Please give this another listen. You'll hear many things you didn't hear the first time, and share it with anyone you think might benefit from it. And once again, thank you. And bye for now.